Amanda Schuyler, the director and CEO of the Henry Morrison Flagler Museum. I'm delighted to welcome you all here on behalf of our president, Kelly Hopkins, and our board of trustees. Tonight, we kick off the season with the first of 3 lectures highlighting our fall exhibition, May I Help You, Madam? The Making of the Modern Department Store. Throughout this season, we will offer lectures and cocktail receptions that take a deeper look at the 3 exhibitions that will be presented by our curatorial team from now until May. These special engagements will be in addition to our beloved Whitehall Lecture Series, which will return in January. As our season opener, May I Help You, Madam explores the rise of the department store as one of the most influential and transformative institutions of modern life. To bring this exhibition to life, we were incredibly fortunate to be able to collaborate with Simon Doonan, who brought a fresh perspective to the Flagler's interpretation of the Gilded Age and the museum's collections. A long-standing member of the fashion community, Simon was awarded the prestigious CFDA award for his unconventional window design work at Barneys New York, a BBC TV comedy series based on his autobiography titled Beautiful People aired around the world. Simon is a regular guest at The Moth, the well-known storytelling series, and a season regular on the Emmy-nominated NBC competition series Making It, starring Amy Poehler and Nick Offerman. Simon is also the author of many books, including biographies of Keith Haring and Lou Reed, and Drag, the Complete Story. His newest book, titled The Camp 100, Glorious Flamboyance from Louis XIV to Lil Nas X. Please join me in welcoming Simon Doonan.
Note the box. I told them Linda Hunt's coming. We need a box. Oh. So, oh yeah. So how's that? Sound good? Yes. Still good? Yes. It's drooping a bit. Anyway, so first off, I'm going to read a couple of pieces which I wrote 25 years ago. One is about window dressing, sort of what does it signify, what does it mean? And the other is about holiday windows. So I thought it'd be interesting to hear this, what I wrote 25 years ago, because I got everything so wrong. It's kind of hilarious. So I'm just going to turn that on. So, and after that, we're going to rage through millions of visuals. That's going to be so tantalizing and fun. So just bear with me while we do a bit of academic stuff. Believe that, you believe anything. But it's sort of academic-ish. All right, so definition of window dressing. Window dressing is, at first glance, so gorgeously useless that it resists all comparison with other fluffy professions. At least flight attendants bring you peanuts. Which they don't anymore, do they? Anyway, this was 25 years ago. Window dressers have no precursors, except maybe the great window dressers of 18th century Versailles, who came every day bearing ladders, props, and bales of fake hair, and spent rainy, giggly afternoons creating landscapes and seascapes on the towering hairdos of Marie Antoinette. Closer examination reveals the shocking truth. Despite their ultra non-essential métier, the hairdressers of Versailles actually had a raison d'etre. And so do the wrist pin cushion toting window dressers, among whom I proudly number myself. Our raison d'etre is one and the same, the creation of desire. hence the title. Window dressers specifically deal with the creation of desire to shop. They dramatize and emotionalize props, mannequins, and merchandise into inviting and compelling tableau morts and occasionally tableau vivants. How many of you remember the Fiorucci live windows and people cavorting in windows? We used to do them at windows at Barneys, but I think Fiorucci was the first. So tableau vivant, tableau mort, that will grab the attention of the passing consumer. It is therefore a form of marketing, and few marketing methods can entice the consumer and sell merchandise quicker than a window display. Pedestrians scream, "I can't live without it," rush into the store, 5 minutes later, prance down the street wearing it. How wrong was I about that? No one does that anymore, do they? Like Liz Lang, Gayfried Steinberg, when was the last time you went into a store, tore all your clothes off because you saw something in the window? Anyway, we'll circle back on that. Pedestrians scream, "I can't live without it," rush into the store, 5 minutes later, prance down the street. Store windows are the advertising venue with the closest proximity to what is known in retail jargon as the point of sale. Though windows are retail's oldest form of advertising, they can still deliver spontaneous customer satisfaction. When new merchandise is delivered, you simply throw the fresh fish in the window. When old merchandise will not sell, you throw the old fish back in the window. And to put it bluntly, the short-term goal of window dressing is a quick sale. So that was actually the introduction to my book, Confessions of a Window Dresser, which was published by Nicholas Callaway, who's right here. Round of applause. Even albeit, in abstract. All right, so this is about holiday windows. Again, something I wrote in the year 2000. So this is specifically holiday windows because the talk is about holiday windows, the exhibition is about holiday windows. So have you any idea how much schlepping it takes to create an entire century of Christmas windows? Because we're thinking about the century from the end of the 19th century to now, the vast changes that have happened in retail and window dressing. So schlepping, the planning, the glitter, the laughter, the tears, the tinsel, the roar of the grease paint, the smell of the crowd. Joke there. Just to see if you're paying attention. Roar of the grease paint, the smell of the crowd, hello. Cast of thousands. You pedestrians, all you have to do is show up on the sidewalk and be entertained. Meanwhile, we window dressers are in a state of terminal post-window exhaustion. We are dehydrated. Windows are very hot, madam. So we are dehydrated. We're hallucinating with fatigue. We ride the subway home and collapse. We have glitter in our hair and glue gun burns on our hands, all in the name of Yuletide commerce. I know whereof I speak. I have been a card-carrying window dresser for 25 years, actually 50 at this point. I've paid my dues, and I can tell you that window display is hard physical work. Most New York stores change their windows every week, and we throw them in and yank them out quicker than you can shout final reductions. But Christmas, the holiday windows, is our Sistine Chapel, our time to show off and really compete with one another. It is also our bête noire, the annual responsibility of coming up with an appropriate, interesting, and different Christmas theme hangs over window dressers everywhere like the sword of Damocles. It's terrible. The pressure. Something scintillating, not too racy, not too cheesy, not too elitist. The design of the Christmas windows must complement the image of the store and simultaneously generate warm and fuzzy press coverage. New York window dressers face an additional challenge. Our windows must meet and exceed the expectations of the toughest audience in the world, i.e., other New Yorkers. A new take on the 12 Days of Christmas, astrology themes, celebrity caricatures, proverbs. New Yorkers will not applaud cliches. They want to be intrigued and surprised again and again and again. And yet Christmas windows must still be festive and contain an element of sweetness. There is only one way to satisfy the complex mandate. We window dressers must give birth to our windows. Christmas is, for this window dresser, moi, a 12-month gestation period. I start planning next year's windows in December when I can critique my own work and assess the reaction on the sidewalk. This is the moment when the windows start to sing and the crowds start to gather. And my burnout is solved by the sight of people reacting to our efforts. They gather outside the windows 4 or 5 deep. They smile and point, just the way I imagine they've done since the 19th century. I get immense satisfaction from watching people gawk at my windows. Bums, families, passing cab drivers, children, seniors. I've even seen a dog barking at my windows at Barneys. And right here there is the true and enduring fabulousness of window display. It is the only truly democratic form of entertainment. Free admission, no velvet ropes, no glass ceiling, no country club snobbery, no ageism, no sexism, come all ye. Part sideshow, part diorama, part street theater. There is something completely unphony about the scope and intention of holiday windows. And then at the end of this piece that I wrote, I've got this ominous thingy here. Remember 25 years ago? Retail experts make ominous predictions about the demise of old-fashioned retail. Soon, everyone will shop via the internet. Is this the death knell for Christmas windows? Will Yuletide zhush become a thing of the past? I'm just going to have some gin. Hang on. So now we'll do the slides. Here we go. So the reason that window display is even a thing is because someone in the late 19th century invented plate glass windows. Otherwise, it would never have happened, because that's when they became a thing. So here are very busy people making plate glass windows in Pittsburgh. A fascinating image. Here is a machine in England. Polishing, grinding machine. I knew you already knew that already. This is a bloke, who did the first lit Christmas tree. Yes, it looks a bit lackluster, but it was the first one, so don't mock. These are early Christmas lights from 1890s. Strange, but back then they must have been such a wow. Now here is the thing that I remember, like at Barneys when we had a big hit with the windows, I'd go up to the office across the street and look down, and this is what you'd see, and I thought, great, I'm not going to get fired, I can stay. So this was the spectacle, that these large plate glass windows, and they had to invent a certain type of lighting too for it all to sort of come together as a thing, window displays. And then abundance, initially people weren't sure what to put in the windows because there wasn't a sort of established vocabulary, so they did a lot of product. So what you see here is mounds of product, and old Edwardian windows had like giant swans all made out of dinner napkins, because they weren't sure. And eventually they figured out, we can just get props and keep the merch on the inside of the store. So more old pictures. This one here says Byron Company, New York. Anyone remember Byron Company? See, that's the thing about New York. There are so many department stores that they've gone. They were on 6th Avenue. No one remembers the name. It's like it's a dynamic world in New York. This, Diane Arbus, her family had a big store in New York called Russex. No one remembers. Richard Avedon, too. His parents also had a department store. So there's Byron's, God rest its soul. Salvador Dali, famous, did windows at Bonwit Teller, and this is in the 30s. And he did these sort of very surreal, disturbing window with sort of naked mannequins in a bath and hair floating in the bath and blah, blah, blah. And while he was out back taking a nap, the window dressers at Bonwit Teller came into the window and they made some, discreet adjustments to make it less pornographic, basically. And Dali came back from his nap and went absolutely postal, completely insane, and smashed the window, pushed the bathtub through the window, got arrested and detained. This is my favorite detail from this story. I have the original clipping from the 30s from the New York Times. He was detained in the women's handbag stockroom till the police arrived. Quelle humiliation. Mannequins. People started to think about mannequins. What should they look like? Should they look like real people? Should they be idealized? So this company, Pierre Iman, when I worked at Maxfield in LA, they had a lot of original Pierre Iman mannequins. Some of them were made of wax. And I remember Tommy Peirce, the father of James Peirce, who's now very successful in the fashion industry, he brought back a wax mannequin, an original Pierre Iman mannequin that he bought at the Paris flea market. And he said, look, isn't this great? Isn't this great? We stuck it in the window, came by on a Sunday to show people, show his kids, and it had melted. It was like that terrible House of Wax movie. But they're interesting, they're stylized, they're creepy. They had glass eyes and real teeth. Very stylized, beautiful, deco, haunting looking. It was a fun job at Maxfield because the windows always looked surreal and interesting just because of these creepy old mannequins. That is Macy's. So this was like what I lived through as a child, because in our small town, the windows were no one had a TV, in the 1950s. So the windows, when they unveiled at the local department store, were the entertainment, a real focus for families to go. It's very heartwarming. Oh. So that looks like an interior display with these strange puppet-like mannequins. It's a little haunting and strange. Children watch the installation of Macy's New York holiday, but it looks more like the interior. Then this window, with the color in it and the pop art, was designed by Andy Warhol. He loved doing windows. He was very enthusiastic about it. He did windows for Bonwitz. Jean Moore hired him to do windows. Lots of... How great. See, I told you. Anyway, won't get distracted. So, Andy Warhol did this window. And yes, he loved doing windows. Jasper Johns, Robert Rauschenberg, they also did windows, but they were very ashamed of it. And they didn't want anybody to know, so they just did it for cash. But Andy used to sign his windows because he thought it was so groovy and so cool, which, he had a pop sensibility, so he just loved the whole idea of shopping and fashion. I wanted to have a Jean Moore window. This isn't a great one. We wanted to have a holiday one. Jean Moore from Tiffany. You all remember his incredible Tiffany windows. Jean Moore was when people say, oh, you're an artist, I say, I'm not. There's only one window dresser who elevated it to the form of art, and that was Jean Moore. It was so exquisite what he did, and so particular, and so artistic and insane. Those windows were incredible, with an egg and a diamond on top and spotlit, and they were like brilliant exercises in minimalism. So this one's a bit cutesy, which wasn't his go-to. Mannequins. So Adele Rootstein had this mannequin factory in London. We were very good friends. She was an incredibly cultivated, interesting person. And she was a sculptor, and she decided, mannequins should be of people. Like recognizable celebrities that resonate with the general public. So she did, over the many decades that she worked, this was her Twiggy mannequin, which was an early mannequin. So she made mannequins more dynamic and interesting. She used to have a great party every year. And there's her one that she did of Pat Cleveland, Pat and Pretty. And there's Daniela Luna, the first black girl to be on the cover of Vogue. It's a European Vogue. And that mannequin was very hard to dress, the Daniela Luna. Its legs were like 4 foot apart, so try getting a pair of jeans on that. Liz Lang, I know you've dressed the mannequins at your store, right? Can you imagine striding? Torture, takes hours to get anything on. Anyway, there's Daniela going for it, fingers, legs wide, the new woman striding. And Adele knew Joan Collins, and she thought, when Joan Collins did The Bitch, remember that movie? You all remember that movie. I know you're just saying, what movie? I've never seen that. So she did one of Joan Collins, and there it is. And Joan probably shouldn't have had her picture taken right next to it, because she's about a foot shorter. That was a mistake. Oh, this window at Barney, now we're on to moi. So this window, at Barney's, I did thousands and thousands of windows. I was there for 35 years. But these are the ones that sort of stick out in my mind. When Andy Warhol died, remember they went into his house and they thought, my God, this guy's a hoarder. Look, bags and bags of stuff from the flea market. And so we did this window that was it was like a couple of months after that he died. So it was Andy, the compulsive collector. The word hoarder wasn't thrown around quite so liberally. And this is whenever he died, 88, something like that. And we've got an Andy Warhol wig from the Halloween shop. They're cheap, they're inexpensive. I thoroughly recommend them as a quick Halloween costume. And we filled the window full of Andy's collectibles, Russell Wright china, cookie jars, Hollywood fan magazines, all the stuff that he would collect. And then we plonked this mannequin in, and the minute we put the wig on, it turned into him. It was such an easy fix. So Pat Hackett, she edited the Andy Warhol diaries. So she was sort of a big player in the Warhol crowd. She was running down 7th Avenue, and she had a heart attack, because he'd not long before died. So she rushed in and thought, oh my God, I thought it was the ghost of Andy back from the dead, Drella, that was his nickname. And then this was one of the first celebrity caricatures that I did. This is Madonna. Do you all recognize? It was a caricature, so it's not the prettiest rendering of her, made by an artist called Martha King, the sculpture. And so this is about the Blonde Ambition tour. I don't know if you remember that. It's when she was involved with Warren Beatty and Sandra Bernhardt, and they'd go on Letterman and be outrageous. And all of those references to all of this. She said she wanted to buy the life of Frida Kahlo and make a movie, so that's there. And then Jean-Paul Gaultier loaned us one of her outfits, the gold lace-up corset, which was actually a beautiful piece of couture. So I had to go pick it up from her brother. I got it back to the display department, and everyone saw that there were these long hairs on it, caught in the lacings and everything, because from the wig, from the ponytail. So there was a riot in the display department with all these window dressers trying to get one of Madonna's wig hairs to keep in their little trinket box. And then Orlando Pita, great hairdresser, he made a giant version of her hair as a kind of holiday tree, and you can see that on the left. This was a big hit in England. It was in New York at the Downtown Store. This is when Maureen Orth wrote this article for Vanity Fair, and it was The Iron Lady, and everybody was calling Margaret Thatcher the Iron Lady. So we made this caricature of her. She's wearing a bondage, sort of heavy metal studded outfit designed by Sylvia Heisel, and she's ironing, because she's the Iron Lady, and she's listening to Iron Maiden, hello, and she's standing next to an Iron Maiden, you know those torture devices? That one was really insane. It was so great. And we made it out of our Andre Putman mannequin, so I recognize the pose of that mannequin. This is hilarious. When Ivana Trump left Donald, we did this holiday window, and it was when she designed the plaza. Like she redecorated the plaza, and the colors were deemed to be a little jarring, a little shrill. Do you remember that? Like the carpets and the curtains and everything. But this was her going off on her own. So she's carrying bags from the D&D building, swatches, because she's now an interior designer. And it was when Trump Airlines went bust, so we have Donald parachuting out of an airplane outside the window. So it's a little humorous take. And she looks a bit like Patsy from Ab Fab, I think. But she had that hairdo before Patsy. So a very sympathetic, humorous kind of take on things. And then right next to it, this was another window, and this is Bette Midler, and it was when she did that movie For the Boys, and I thought, all the other stores uptown, they have all these kinetic things. They have, Lord & Taylor had everything moving, trains, villages, it was all kinetic. And I was so jealous of that because I could never figure out how to do that and who should do it and blah, blah, blah. So I thought, I'm going to make Bette a dancing Christmas tree, just going like this. So we had this expensive motor which we bought, and it was installed in this tree. She's got a menorah in one hand and a gift in the other, and it seemed to be working fine. We turned it on, and Bette's in this window dancing, and we were playing the soundtrack of the movie outside. Big hit, loved it. And I thought, on a Sunday, I lived on 13th Street, so I thought, I better go over and see if everything's okay. And when I got over there, I heard this thumping noise, and Bette was banging her head against the window. So we had to turn it off, because it made her seem completely unhinged. Here's another Madonna window, and this is when she kept dyeing her hair and taking new identities. So this was the mesmerizing. I did these windows like a sort of Coney Island sideshow. So she was the mesmerizing mistress of reinvention. She was always reinventing herself. I'm Marilyn. I'm going to be Martha Graham. Remember, she was meeting with Martha Graham. I'm going to do a film about her life. And then this is a very Barneys trick. The holiday trees are all made out of hair products, and this is a hair salon where the seats and everything were loaned to me by Liz Rosenberg, who was Madonna's publicist. And she was always very excited about the windows, and she's the one that got me access to Madonna. You've probably heard of Liz Rosenberg, some of you, she's very well known in that world. And her dad worked in a ball chain factory, or owned a ball chain factory right around the corner from Barneys, which a reminder of that area was all little factories, not that long ago. So anyway, the trees are made out of hair products, hair rollers, wigs, bottles of bleach around the bottom. So that's a very Barneys thing, to make things out of other things. This is Prince, and actually this is one of the things I kept from all these decades of props and blah, blah, blah. Actually, we used to have these studio sales, and I bought the head of Prince, and we still have it in our house down here, actually. So this is all aspects of Prince, and Prince, this would be 1990. He loaned us a whole bunch of his clothes, and it took a long time to get a mannequin the right size. In the end, we used a petite girl mannequin, because you think I'm small, he was like me, only more slight, So that was the adventure of that window, was, making his mannequin look sharp. But we had to sort of cut the knees off, cut the shoulders off. The display is very improvisational. There isn't like a guidebook on how to do it. You have to sort of make it up as you go along. This was an artist that I worked with, and he wanted to hang the trees upside down. I can't even remember why. But I used to collaborate with a lot of artists, and it's a bit of a minefield, because once you invite them, then you have to do what they want to do, and you're like, oh my God. And there's Madonna running down 7th Avenue when her sex book came out. Remember the sex book? I know you all have copies of it at home, so you're all like, oh, what sex book? So that was fun, all those Stephen Meisel pictures. Here's one that's maybe more relatable to this crowd, and it is Martha Stewart. And this is when Martha Stewart had that TV show, and she also had the magazine, and she was always telling women that they should be bleaching the north side of the house and making their own toilet paper and making everything from scratch. And remember, it was like, Jesus, if I have to do all this, I have to give up my job. It was like a unbelievable list of things you were supposed to do, like curing your dough for days, and meanwhile you're bleaching the north side of the house again because it's gotten mossy. So this was sort of making fun of her compulsive, incredible. The drive is unbelievable. So here she's swinging from a chandelier, but we're also repairing it at the same time. And at Barneys, we did her wedding book. Remember the famous first wedding book? That was launched at Barneys back in the 80s. This was Uptown, and this was the great blondes of the world. So lots of people loaned us stuff for this window, including Martha. And Madonna loaned us her fur coat. You can just about see it from Evita. She wore this fur coat. There's stuff in there for any blonde you can think of. We have stuff in there that was identified. So it was like relics from the great blondes of the world. That's sort of a very Barneys fun take on things. This was a Christmas cabaret, kind of inspired by cabaret, very louche, very Otto Dix. These were in collaboration with Talk Magazine, when Tina Brown had Talk Magazine. How are we doing for time? So, I want to leave time to drop dead, and to also leave time for a Q&A. So how much longer should I go? 5? 5, 10 minutes. All right, and then we'll do a Q&A. Yes. Does that sound good? All right. These are very, very Barneys. If you look at these, this was like a collaboration with Talk Magazine. So the Queen was Tiara Talk, and the Cleopatra was Girl Talk. And if you look at Cleopatra, her eyebrows are mannequin legs, sprayed black. Her earrings are car mufflers that were just rusty, and we just, lacquered them. Her face is completely covered in beer bottle tops. And this is for no particular reason. It was just a thing that we always did, like making things out of other things, repurposing things. It wasn't like recycling. It was like doing something clever with something that existed. And customers loved it because they would walk down the street and they'd say, oh my God, look, the eyebrows are mannequin legs. It's like actually engaging for people to spot something very familiar. So the Queen, her face is all covered in makeup sponges, and her lips are covered in fake nails. This is to my recollection. So there was also James Brown in this series, asphyxiation. And yes, James Brown, he came in the back of a convertible Cadillac when we opened the windows and sang, it was really great. So at Barneys, we did have good pull with celebs, and they would just show up. It wasn't like, oh, well, I'm going to need a town car, and here's my rider, and blah, 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 blah. We would just ask people, and they'd come. That's the old days. Now I'm sure they're all unwieldy. This was a tableau vivant. We decided we would do live windows. So we asked students, we wanted to get 5 couples from FIT. I thought I'll get them from FIT. They'll be into it, they love fashion. So I called FIT and I said, I need 5 couples, 1 for each window. We did the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, in a very pastiche kind of way. And then on the weekends, we would put these young kids in the window. The only thing is, I didn't know there weren't any boys in FIT. The entire fashion class was all girls. So we had to take, every window had a girl in it who was dragged up as a boy. This girl here is sort of dressed up as a Keith Moon type character with a Cher type girl. But they were really fun, and they sat and read and larked about and ate, and we told the press that they were living in the windows, it was when all that Big Brother and that kind of stuff started. So it was very au courant. So we had a new CEO at Barneys, and he said, what's the theme for the holidays? And I said, share. Share is retiring. Share. And he was like, share? And then my colleague, Judy Collinson, I'm forever grateful to her, she just swung around and said to him, the holidays are for sharing. So that's what it said on all the windows, the holidays were for sharing. And Bob Mackey loaned us all these outfits. Everyone loves Cher. Is there anyone in this room who doesn't love Cher? Thank you. There's probably some young people who don't know who Cher is, but Cher, see? References to every Cher, because Cher's long career, incredible, many moments to riff on. Perfect subject for this kind of window display. Oh my God, yes. So Camilla and Charles. And this was so fun to do. So we put Charles in the bath with his sock suspenders on, and Camilla's wearing this custom-made house coat designed by Albert Elbaz from Lanvin, no longer with us. And there's all kinds of references to it. And the boys are in there, Harry and William. So they're both sitting on a toilet, on a throne, if you will, and each one is holding a toilet roll, and Will says the air, but it was done in like the typeface of a toilet paper company. It says the air, and then of course Harry says the spare. Get it? Spare toilet roll. All right. So this was so fun to do, and people loved it. And we had photographs by that woman that used to photograph people imitating royals. Remember that lady did those big photographs? Hilarious. So that was really fun. And it was a royal holiday, and we did the shopping bag, and we had a catalog and everything. Everything was sort of tied into this theme every year. So the royal holiday, that was a very successful one. That's another Warhol window. This is one I really love. It's we made Andy's head. If you could see into his head what would be in there. And it was basically all the same stuff from that other window, like the cookie jars and the magazines. And it was like, we did have red spectacles on it, on this head. A bit more gin. You'd think Jonathan would rush over with a recolor at this joint, wouldn't you? Do you have one, darling? I'll probably choke on it. Just as we're, oh. So yes, Warhol, we did millions of Warhol windows because he was such a resonant character for our customers. And over on the other side, we have the social butterfly, Andy the social butterfly, Studio 54, making money, blah, blah, blah. And then Andy the factory boy, earlier Andy, foil all over the factory walls. So we always worked with the Warhol Foundation. It was all very official. And yes, people love these windows. Julie Gilhart, our fashion director at Barneys, she was obsessed when she was a real in the vanguard of the green movement. And she kept saying green, 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 recycling, recycling. And I kept saying, we're a luxury company, Goyard, Goyard, Chanel. But one holiday she won, and she said, we have to do windows about, you know, the environment and recycling. And I thought, oh God, what am I going to do? Like, no one wants, it's Christmas. You can't have pictures of drowning polar bears, and it's holiday time. So I'm quite proud of myself that I did actually figure out some fun windows. This is Rudolph the recycling reindeer. And everything in this window, tin cans, everything is recycling, except some of it was and some of it wasn't, because I said to the display people, okay, go down to those places where all the bums take their old cans and just buy loads of them, you know, these huge bags of cans, and bring them back, and we'll make everything out of these. And they was really revolting, like full of, you can imagine. And so we had to just buy, you know, from Costco, beverages. So then this journalist came by just as I'm pouring thousands of Coke cans down the sink. And it was very, look over there, you know. But anyway, people loved it. It was very on the, you know, it was very of the moment. And again, like I love to put frames around holiday windows. This one, they're plastic bowls with lights in them as a frame. It pulls you the visual in. For a holiday window, it has to look like more than an average window. So a frame is a very good way of achieving that. The other thing I always do, as we've done upstairs, is a mirror bowl. You don't necessarily see it, but if you spotlight it and it's hidden, then you get this kinetic feel, you know, so that you don't have mannequins banging their heads against the window. You can get a kinetic, breezy feel. Then after we did the holidays, a CEO at the time thought this window should tie in with the previous year, so I thought, oh God, what are we going to do? And then I found out it was the anniversary of the peace sign, 50th anniversary. So this is peace and love. So happy 50th to the peace sign. So, and then Macy's, the following spring, they did peace and love with giant peace signs that looked exactly like ours. But we didn't invent the peace sign. So if you're not being copied in the world of window display, you're nobody. And this window, we were always, especially Barneys went through some rough patches, bankruptcy twice, you know, the story. And so I was always looking for people who could underwrite the cost of the windows. So I met this woman from Illy Coffee, and she said, oh, I would love to underwrite one of your holiday windows. And I said, she said, but I'll need my logo in the window. And I said, we don't do that. I think that's really naff, just like a little thanks to Illy Coffee. I said, give me everything that has the Illy logo on it, and we'll make the whole window out of it. So it's kind of an aggressive form of co-branding. You're not trying to be kind of prissy and pretend about it. So everything in there is made out of stuff from the Illy repertoire. And the dress, the cans in the back. So it actually has some oomph to it. And you're not trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. It's like intentional. This was the last window that I did. I think it was 2010 or something like that. And it was during there was this mania for celebrity chefs, which is still going on. And I was fascinated by that because I'm basically a bit of a Philistine when it comes to food. I'm not very knowledgeable about it, but I studied it. And I watched the Food Network, and I got to know all these chefs. And we did this. They were really great windows. I'm very proud of them. And so we featured every chef. There's Mario Batali with a big apple stuffed in his mouth. And with this window here, Anthony Bourdain and Bobby Flay. And it was like a food fight, bacchanalian food fight. There was another window with Ina Garten and Martha Stewart and Flo, what's her name? The one with the butter on everything? Her. And she's great. So, yes, it was really fun because that's a good example of where you can't be can't be too elitist. So it has enormous appeal, this food thing, because people were really obsessed with celebrity chefs. So that one was great. There's the food fight window. So it was a complete mess. Intentionally, there's your Wolfgang Puck, they're all there. And it was this bacchanalian food fight, and you can't really see this, but the window was spattered with food. So we would make up these gloppy, revolting concoctions and fling them at plexi and wait till they dried, then take them off and glue them on the window. So it really, you were looking through all this mess of flying food. So it was really great, because it's sort of the antithesis of high fashion. And that was always my intention with Barneys, like, to be more like Coney Island. We're having fun. Glenn O'Brien, who was a really clever guy, he used to be the copywriter for a while at Barneys and the creative director for a while. He wrote this copy line that was down to earth and out of this world, Barneys New York. And I thought, that always stuck with me, because that's what stores should be like. They should be out of this world, but not be, snotty, snooty, intimidating. It should be, to use a Yiddish word, heimischer. A heimischer kind of thing. Down to earth, out of this world. This is a great recolor, Johnny. Thank you. I think that's the last slide. Let me just check. Thank you, Simon Doonan. Do I feel like this was a great cultural moment and it's over and now blah, blah, blah? I definitely think there was something, window display was at its most dynamic and prolific and ubiquitous in the second half of the 20th century. And yes, definitely. But the thing is, I noticed in the 90s, late 90s, people are walking down the street, and instead of having their eyes glued to my windows, they're looking at their phones. And so you have to be aware of what's going on around you if you're in any form of marketing. So I thought, oh, I get it. That's what's going to happen. And then now, like, you look at Instagram, and within seconds, you've seen 80 billion things that are 10 times more, compelling to the average person. So everything changes, everything evolves, and you have to be philosophical about it. And I always never wanted to be one of those pinched old queens that was always lamenting the past. So, but having said that, the 90s was an incredible era for fashion, and for windows. But, fashion's great now. The landscape of fashion's never been bigger and more exciting, dynamic. Young people want to get involved in it. There's endless opportunities. Whereas there weren't before. It was a much smaller world. Right. Good question, darling. Thank you.
Hi there. Was there, during the 90s, which you're speaking of, was there a rivalry between you and Bergdorf Goodman?
Well, my boss used to refer to Bergdorf Goodman as Burger King. And we were in a unique position because we were downtown where this new spirit was happening in Manhattan. All these things were colliding: graffiti, hip-hop, music, art, Keith Haring. It was all Madonna, Warhol, it was Area Club, Palladium. It was all dynamic and happening. So we were part of that. And so uptown, it was still the carriage trade, very gracious chandeliers, da-da-da-da-da. So they all used to come and write down lists of vendors that we were selling and finding in Europe. And we were like, where is that, Bergdorf? Never heard of it. Anyway, so we weren't looking outward. Like, one time I remember saying to Fred Pressman, I should go uptown and do the stores and look around. He said, why? You don't think, what are you going to find? It's all happening here. Because we had everything exclusive: Prada, Jill Sander, Armani. It was all happening at Barneys, and then we opened uptown. So, am I chest beating now? Yes.
Really enjoyed your presentation. Wondering if you have any Bill Cunningham stories.
Well, Bill Cunningham, I don't think he particularly liked photographing me, and that's why he probably didn't very much, because I would always do a pose, because he was constantly outside Barney's, so I would always throw a little pose, and he was like, oh God, because that was his whole thing. He wanted to catch people just being themselves, and that's absolutely, I was incapable of that. But we collaborated on many occasions. He was just unbelievable. He was a one-off, a genius guy. Anyone have that book that he did where this woman is dressed in outfits that match buildings? Edita Sherman, she was a photographer. So we could be here all day. So Amy Fine Collins, I know you have some Bill Cunningham. Gayfried too. How many here have had their picture taken by Bill Cunningham? Well, there's 3. Oh, look, there's a man too. See, you weren't posing. No, he was really special. And that book about him was great. I actually wrote a review of it for the New York Times. Anyway. Oh, he did. Were you very chic? He saw the glamour coming down the street.
Okay, so you say that all of the this is Barney's kind of look and feel, but wouldn't you really say that it's your look and feel? I mean, I don't think that they've done anything like this before or after you.
Well, I was there so long that it became the Barneys look. The windows were always cheeky and had a certain English, irreverent take on things. So it became part of the Barneys thing. And actually, there was a guy before me called Stephen DePietri, who was really a talented guy, and he died of AIDS, as so many window display people did. He actually designed the installation of Diana Vreeland's YSL exhibit. Remember when she did the YSL exhibit? He was great. And he did a couple of quirky caricature windows at Barney's prior to me. So I always like to give him a shout out. But yeah, I think my whole thing became the Barney's thing, repurposing things, making junk, blah, blah, blah. Because I thought, you know, the product was exquisite at Barney's. We had everything that was quality and incredible. And so, but the windows didn't need to be that. They could be playful and, as I say, Coney Island. I thought it was a fun juxtaposition rather than being too stuffy. We didn't need to be. So I think it became the thing. But yeah, no, you know me, so you know, yes, this is me.
Simon, did anyone get really mad at you for putting them in one of your windows?
Some people got mad at me for not putting them in. They wanted, once we started doing that caricature thing, there were lots of people that would call up, or their publicists would call up and say, I want to be in the window, and blah, blah, blah. So there was a bit of that going on. It took a while for them to understand the nature of a caricature. I don't think I could do it now because people are because of phones and Instagram and selfies, people are so thin-skinned about the way they look that doing a sort of brutal caricature of somebody. And when I did the book that we did together, remember we got a blurb from Madonna and she said, thanks for making me look so ugly. That was her blurb. Because they were caricatures. It was at the time of Spitting Image, that English show that did kind of brutal caricatures of people.
By Spitting Image?
Yeah. Oh no, different people made them. A girl called Martha King, and then other people.
Simon, do you think that the windows, I think the store changed when it came uptown. Do you think the windows changed when you came uptown?
We tried to keep the same esprit going on, but keep in mind at that point, we're opening stores all over the country. Beverly Hills, Chicago, San Francisco. It was like a roller coaster expansion, also Japan. So there weren't as many windows uptown. Downtown, it was a dream. I had the whole block to play with. So it's, in a way, not entirely fair comparison. We tried to keep the same. We had a three-word brand thing at Barney's that we used to sew in the labels. Those of you who bought the Barney's collection merchandise, it said Taste, Luxury, Humor. So we tried to keep Taste, Luxury, Humor as part of it. Did you think they went off when they went uptown? Be honest. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I'm interested, what got you into this profession? Did you go to art school? Or?
No, I actually went to university and studied psychology, so I had one of those useless arts degrees, and I was only interested in fashion. And then when I left college in Manchester, the only call I made was to YSL, because that was 1973, 74, and YSL was just the most everything. And I talked to this lady called Lady Claire Rendlesham, and she was this incredible woman who ran the British YSL thing. And I said, I've just got my degree and I love YSL and I want to be a salesperson. And she said, well, she was in her black office on a Gothic throne, smoking with a hat pulled down like Greta Garbo. She was really great, completely one of those Saint Laurent people. And she said, well, I can pay you £19 a week. And so I thought, oh, okay. I didn't even know if that was too much or too little. So then I walked down the street and I met this other person and they said, oh, we'll pay you 20. So I could have had this shimmering career of decadent YSL fun, but I went to this other boutique. Oh, and then I met the window guy at this other boutique. I met him and I got into it and I thought, well, this is more fun than standing there being a salesperson all day long, because I used to do that in my hometown in a department store. And I always noticed the display people were just having a laugh riot of carrying ladders and laughing and always carrying on, always busy. You know, so I thought, well, that could be fun. I could do that. Anybody could do that. It was just which anybody could. It was just like a glorified version of tidying up. You know, you just had to make sure things were straight and tidy. That's why then I thought, well, I could make it cheeky and provocative. And there was this guy in New York called Victor Hugo, who was the boyfriend of Halston. And he was doing, I heard about these windows he was doing at the Halston store. Do you New Yorkers remember those windows? Like, they were incredible. And he had this one window, his holiday window, he had silver mannequins, beautiful silver mannequins wearing Halston chiffon, and they were smashing these TV screens and guzzling champagne, and the whole window was smashed TVs and smashed champagne bottles. It was like the most chic, glamorous version of punk rock you've ever seen. And I followed him and his work. He was really an incredible guy and visionary. And when he inspired me, I've done that TV window so many times in different stores. Like, you could try it at home. Just get some old TVs, spray them silver, and smash them. It's really fun. It's actually a lot harder than you would think to smash a TV. Jonathan Adler.
With that in mind, and smashing things and moving things around, and you said you had so many windows, what would your time, just a process question, what would your timing be, and how many people would you get to create a window like that?
That one, like, I would sit and design it, sketch it in the summer, and then come September, we would start pre-staging it. Because I learned this the hard way. You can't do a window like that just by, you can't say, okay, the store's open, let's go in and start. You have to pre-stage the entire thing and then transfer it to the store for a very quick install. Otherwise you disrupt the store and blah, blah, blah. But basically, you've got planning, which is a year-round process. And then September, October, are the pre-staging months, which is intense. And there might be, you know, for 10 windows downtown, there might be, you know, 30 freelance people who are not employees of the store. They're artists and kids who can do paper mache and stuff like that. And then install is the first week of November. And it's never changed. You know, that's still the routine. I know one's impression is that every year the holidays get closer and closer and closer. They're going to end up in the spring. It's actually, the dates are pretty set. You know, holiday interior shops go in early September, which is a bit de trop, but, you know, hey, it's commerce. And then September, October is the main fabrication time. But then you have to be working on the following year, especially at Barneys when we tried to get funding, underwriting for all the windows. That sort of makes it a 2-year, 18-month project.
You said you collaborated with a lot of artists. With Red Grooms, anybody you ever?
Yeah, Red Grooms. I remember we did this project where we did, it was the anniversary of the fall of the Bastille. You know, I guess that was the late 80s. And we had all these artists do the Statue of Liberty, different version of the Statue of Liberty, many artists. I think he was one of them for that year. But we did lots of group things like that. We'd have a whole bunch of artists who would do a piece, and they were all put in the window simultaneously with fashion designers using the same theme. And it was great being able to... Gave me a break from doing paper mache images of Margaret Thatcher.
You are a rock star, and
anybody from New York, anywhere around. No, you are, and your husband's lovely as well. He's lovely. You
Thank
are the
you.
rock star.
To us. I've always wanted to be the same height as Campbell.
I don't quite need the box.
Oh, you had to remind me.
I'm sorry, Simon. I'm Campbell Mobley. I'm the chief curator here at the museum. And we had a lot of fun installing the exhibition with Simon. And we had to climb in and out of the window a lot. And, I'm like hiking my leg over and just kind of going. It's like one stride for me. And we did have to get a nice stepladder. But it worked out in the end. Well, thank you so much, Simon, for everything. To spend time with you is to be reminded that both brilliance and bon vivant charm are not mutually exclusive. You're not just pretty. You brought a generosity of spirit and a wit sharper than any pair of fabric shears and an imagination that is unmistakably Simon. Seeing the museum's collection through Simon-colored lenses was nothing short of revelatory. On behalf of my entire department, Jess, Rosie, Victoria, Paige, Chad, and Philip, thank you for widening our field of vision and inviting us into your way of thinking, seeing, and dreaming. You encourage us to trust our instincts and to push past the expected and lean into a kind of curatorial courage that has changed the way we work. You awaken something in all of us that will outlast the run of this exhibition, which has been extended through the end of the Palm Beach season. For you to be a part of May I Help You, Madam, is not only an honor, it is a defining moment of my curatorial career, and I would argue, in the museum's own story. Your presence elevated the project in ways we will be talking about for years, and thank you for lending your artistry, your irreverence, and your signature delight in the unconventional. It has brought an entirely new dimension to Whitehall. And to all of you joining us today, thank you. We are delighted to continue this programming series with 2 additional panels. Next Monday, we will have Gene Pressman. He and I will be in conversation talking about his latest book, They All Came to Barneys, an intimate look at his family's legacy in the legendary store that helped shape 20th century retail. And yes, once counted Mr. Doonan as one of his brightest stars. And the final talk in the series will be with our director, Amanda Skyer, and Robert Rufino, who is here this evening. Robert is also an incredible window dresser, having worked for Bendels and Tiffany & Company. And the talk will focus on his latest work with Urban Electric, with the premiere of a behind-the-scenes documentary on his windows, which transforms 10th Street in New York City. And that event will take place on January 7th. Thank you all.
Thank you, Simon, and thank you, Campbell. I think we're off to a great start for the season. I hope to see you all often, starting with our lecture on Monday with Gene Pressman. And if you haven't had a chance to view the exhibition, please, please, please come. Thank you for being here tonight. Have a great evening.